They smiled at me across the table, but I already knew what he was digging for, my family's hidden treasure. The way he shifted in his chair, fingers twitching as he casually glanced at the corner of the room where the library door hung slightly ajar, it was like watching a predator study its prey. I could almost hear the faint click of the lock as he edged it open, the whisper of his steps on the polished oak floors, though no one else seemed to notice. That was Belle for you, charming in public, calculating in private, and always overestimating my trust. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and tell us where you're listening from. I remember the morning vividly. June 3rd, 2021, a Thursday. The sunlight spilled across the Chestnut Hill Estate's library floor, glinting off the brass handles of our family ledger cabinets. My eyes caught a gap on the shelf where the $3,200 appraisal bill for the silver tea set should have been. At first I thought I misplaced it, but the nagging unease wouldn't leave me. I picked up the creased invoice, flipping it to the corner with the date stamped June 2nd. The handwriting matched none of ours. Well, none of ours but his. That was the first concrete proof I had, though I wouldn't confront him just yet. I have always been meticulous. Vintage cars require precision, patience, and an eye for details, and I carried the same diligence into safeguarding the legacy of my family. But childhood memories of the treasure gnawed at me. The journals I hid under the attic eaves, letters folded so many times the edges had frayed, the stories my grandmother whispered about coins, heirlooms, and rare artifacts hidden behind false walls. Every memory came with a pang of fear that my Bill, with his polished smile, could unravel decades of careful protection. The first clue appeared innocuous. Saturday brunch, June 5th. He lingered near the reading nook, pretending to admire the photographs of our ancestors. Fascinating history, he said, but his eyes darted to the top drawer of the oak cabinet. I smiled thinly, aware he believed he was casual, harmless. I noted the incident in my ledger, June 5th, 11:35 a.m. Bill observed in library vicinity, suspicious posture, potential interest in legacy documents. By June 7th, I upgraded the locks on the library doors. Solid brass, custom key, impossible to pick without the original. Yet experience taught me that locks alone wouldn't deter him. I installed authorized hidden cameras, discreet, capturing motion only in the library and adjacent hallway. Each device synced with a ledger entry, June 7th, 2:10 p.m. Camera installed above left bookshelf. June 7th, 2:15 p.m. Camera tested, operational. Evenings became the hardest. I would sit on the worn leather couch, listening to the subtle creak of the floorboards outside the library, wondering if he had slipped past unnoticed. A rustle of letters, the whisper of paper against the mahogany shelf. It was almost cinematic, almost like a spy movie, only the stakes were deeply personal. The heirloom wasn't just a collection of antique coins or silverware. It was the story of our family, our identity. Every letter, every receipt was a piece of our collective memory. I doubted myself sometimes had I left the journals too easily accessible, but the evidence kept me anchored. I called my daughter in on the ledger system. She was 18, tech-savvy, and astonishingly observant. Together we began documenting every minor anomaly, misplaced envelopes, shifted book spines, even footprints near the rare map collection. My sister, always quietly protective of the estate, became my confidant. The three of us formed a silent triad, charting his movements like cartographers mapping an encroaching storm. June 10th, the day sticks in my mind. I returned from a morning inspection at the workshop to find the library door slightly ajar again. I froze, the familiar pang of dread twisting in my chest. The $3,200 appraisal bill was gone once more, but this time I noticed a faint scratch along the edge of the desk, a small clue yet telling. It was not mere curiosity, it was intrusion. I slipped the bill back into my drawer, underlined the date with a precise hand, and noted in my ledger June 10th, 10:45 a.m. Evidence of unauthorized access, Bell probable suspect. By mid-June, the pattern was undeniable. Whispers over phone calls I overheard when passing the living room, casual remarks during estate brunches, questions about letters, photographs, and hidden family stories. They were all part of a larger obsession. He was trying to piece together what my grandmother had locked away decades ago. Each act of intrusion, each subtle question was a thread in the tapestry of his greed. The sensory details haunted me. The faint scent of his cologne lingering near the library door, the weight of old papers as I shuffled them in drawers, the soft click of camera shutters capturing silent evidence. Childhood recollections merged with present fears, me hiding coins behind the fireplace at 7, finding secret compartments in drawers at 11, reading the family journals at night under candlelight. The treasure was more than money. It was a fragment of who we were. I began a day-by-day ledger, tracking Bill's every move. June 11th, 8:15 a.m. Observed him touching the handle of the library door without entering. June 12th, 2:30 p.m. Photographed him lingering near the ledger cabinet. June 13th, 4:45 p.m. Daughter confirmed movement toward the attic staircase. Each entry felt like a small victory in containment, a mental foothold against the growing anxiety that he might actually succeed. By late June, I had an entire dossier forming receipts, photographs, time-stamped video clips, and my detailed ledger. Every anomaly, every whispered comment he made about family history, every misstep was documented. The juxtaposition of his overconfidence and my meticulous vigilance created a tension that was almost unbearable, yet it was necessary. The heirloom, our family story, had survived decades of neglect, greed, and time. It would survive him, too. Even as I secured the locks, installed cameras, and logged each movement, doubt occasionally crept in. Had I misjudged him? Was this paranoia? But the $3,200 appraisal bill missing twice, and the subtle scratches on the library door confirmed it. Betrayal was real, and my family's treasure was at stake. I resolved to remain patient, precise, and vigilant. Each day, each entry in my ledger brought me closer to the inevitable confrontation, closer to reclaiming what was ours. I ended June with a quiet reflection, seated in the library's corner, the smell of old books heavy in the warm summer air. My daughter and sister had become my anchors. My lawyer was briefed for preliminary legal advisories, and I felt a grim satisfaction in documenting everything. The path forward was clear: observe, record, and protect. The treasure was more than silver and gold. It was the embodiment of our family's history, and I would not let it slip through my fingers. The library door remained a silent sentinel, ajar just enough to remind me that vigilance was eternal. Every creak, every shadow, every whispered step outside its frame would be noted. My Bill's obsession was now a dance I watched from the sidelines, and for the first time I felt the balance of power tilting ever so slightly in my favor. The stage was set, and the story, our story, was only beginning. By mid-June, the evidence was irrefutable. I could no longer deny that my Bill's obsession had crossed into intrusion. Each day brought new confirmation: a letter out of place, a ledger slightly ajar, even the faint rustle of papers in rooms he had no reason to enter. It felt as if the estate itself was conspiring against me, whispering secrets that only he seemed eager to uncover. I replayed every interaction, every casual comment he had made about our family history, and the pattern emerged like a sinister blueprint. June 16th, a Wednesday afternoon, stands out. I found the faint outline of footprints on the library's Persian rug, partially smudged but unmistakable. They led toward the corner where our grandmother's journals were kept. My stomach twisted. Those journals contained the earliest records of the treasure, coin placements, heirloom locations, even coded notes that only my family had ever understood. My BL had already begun decoding decades of careful secrecy. I felt an icy knot of panic, followed quickly by resolve. The emotional weight was crushing. Each night I sat in the library, tracing the edges of the journals with my fingers, remembering my grandmother's stories about secrecy, trust, and the burden of legacy. I remembered being a child, hiding coins behind floorboards, the thrill and responsibility mingling in equal measure. Now that responsibility was mine again, but the stakes were infinitely higher. A misstep could cost not just the treasure, but our family honor and reputation. My daughter, ever vigilant, became my confidant and ally. June 18th, she reported a suspicious phone call. Bill had tried coaxing my sister for historical clues. The conversation was brief but revealing. He was desperate, and his obsession was growing. My sister, protective yet shaken, confided in me the same day that he had questioned her repeatedly about our grandmother's attic archives. The pressure he exerted on her confirmed everything I feared. He would manipulate, charm, or guilt anyone to get what he wanted. Financial stakes compounded the worry. June 21st, a $7,500 loan appeared under false pretenses, supposedly for estate maintenance, but clearly linked to his treasure hunting obsession. I held the documents in my hands, the embossed bank letterhead cold beneath my fingers. The thought that he had risked money to dig into our past, to claim what was never his, made the betrayal cut deeper. Each dollar was a symbol of his greed, every receipt a testament to his manipulation. I oscillated between guilt and anger. Had I been too trusting? Did my casual hospitality at family events give him room to maneuver? Could I have prevented this before it escalated? Yet, every doubt was met with hard evidence, footprints, ledger gaps, whispered phone conversations, and the $7,500 loan letter. These confirmed the scope of his obsession, leaving no room for misjudgment. Throughout late June, my daughter and I documented everything with almost obsessive precision. Each intrusion, each manipulated interaction was logged day by day. June 22nd, 9:15 a.m. BL photographed near attic staircase, June 23rd, 2:40 p.m. Daughter intercepted message asking sister about treasure maps. June 24th, 11:05 a.m. Ledger drawer found slightly open. These entries, combined with video captured by the hidden cameras, created a chronological chain impossible to refute. The emotional toll was relentless. Sleep became fitful, my mind churned with the what-ifs and the consequences of failure. Summer's heat seemed oppressive, pressing down on the estate as if to echo my anxiety. Each creak of the floorboards, each faint movement in the hall reminded me that betrayal wasn't theoretical. It was breathing, alive, and inches away from destroying the legacy I had sworn to protect. But in the shadows of despair, a spark of strategy emerged. I realized that my emotional collapse, though intense, could be channeled. My daughter's keen observation, my sister's insight, and my meticulous documentation meant we were not powerless. The ledger, the hidden cameras, and the small but deliberate traps we began planting would allow us to turn fear into leverage. He was growing overconfident. He underestimated the combination of vigilance, patience, and lawfulness we had at our disposal. By the end of June, the Summer of Secrets had set the stage for something far larger. The BIL's obsession was no longer just a threat. It was a lead we could follow. Each intrusion, each misstep, each whispered question was a breadcrumb leading to his eventual exposure. And as I stared at the journals that had survived generations, I promised myself we would protect our treasure, our history, and our family honor. The emotional collapse had passed its peak, replaced by a steely determination. I would not act rashly. I would act methodically. He had chosen obsession, and I would choose strategy. Each day's ledger entry, every note captured on camera, every whispered word overheard, brought me closer to turning this betrayal into justice. By the time July rolled in, I could feel the tension coiling like a spring, ready to release at the precise moment we chose. The Summer of Secrets was far from over, but the path forward, meticulously plotted, legally sound and morally justified, was clear. Betrayal had left its mark, but it had also illuminated our next move. By early July, the pattern of intrusion had evolved into a predictable rhythm. Each creak of the floorboards, every shuffle of paper became part of a dance I was learning to anticipate. My daughter and sister had become my eyes and ears, but the real challenge was planning the countermeasures without tipping him off. Every move had to be precise, every trap subtle yet undeniable. July 2nd, a Friday afternoon, marked the first major step. I sat with my daughter in the library, a sunbeam cutting across the polished oak table. We spread out the journals, ledgers, and photographs in chronological order. My daughter's tablet captured the images, time-stamped and geotagged. I instructed her to mark suspicious anomalies, folded letters not matching our handwriting, ledger entries with odd notations, and envelopes whose seals had been tampered with. Each mark was added to our day-by-day ledger, July 2nd, 3:15 p.m. First anomaly confirmed, July 2nd, 3:45 p.m. BIL likely accessed documents within past 48 hours. I began planting subtle misdirections. Forged maps indicated treasure locations in harmless spots, behind the greenhouse floorboards, under a loose attic tile. Misfiled receipts suggested minor historical finds elsewhere. The goal wasn't trickery for its own sake, but to observe how he responded. July 4th. My daughter reported a suspicious glance he cast toward the greenhouse. July 5th. He lingered unusually long near the attic stairwell. The traps were working, slowly revealing his obsession. Legal preparation ran parallel. I met with our family lawyer on July 6th to review evidence collected thus far. Video clips from hidden cameras, ledger entries, photographs, and BIL's unsolicited interactions with my sister. Our strategy was airtight: document everything, maintain legal integrity, and ensure every action could withstand scrutiny. The lawyer emphasized that any misstep could backfire, reinforcing my commitment to methodical planning. Every day, I revisited my childhood memories of the treasure, hiding coins behind the fireplace, discovering the secret compartment beneath the library floor, and reading my grandmother's cryptic letters. Those memories guided where to plant the controlled leaks. July 8th. I shifted an old letter with a forged annotation, making it appear that the treasure was partially discovered. It was subtle, but I knew he would notice. Within hours, daughter's hidden camera captured him rifling through the drawers near that letter. Evidence was flowing into our ledger naturally. July 10th, Saturday evening, I upgraded the locks on the attic and library cabinets once more, adding a dual key system and security sensors. Each change was logged. July 10th, 6:15 p.m. Locks upgraded, dual key system implemented. July 10th, 6:45 p.m. Security sensors tested and operational. The estate was a fortress, and he was unaware of how closely his movements were monitored. Small misdirections extended beyond physical traps. Emails, drafted but never sent, suggested alternative locations for minor family artifacts. Notes with inconspicuous errors hinted at secrets buried in plain sight. Each subtle inconsistency was designed to draw him into the breadcrumb trail, ensuring he revealed his intentions while we quietly documented them. By mid-July, the day-by-day ledger had become a detailed map of his obsession. Every intrusion, every curious glance, every whisper to my sister was recorded. July 14th, 4:20 p.m. Hidden camera captured BIL examining forged maps. July 15th, 2:35 p.m. He questioned sister about attic journals again. Each entry confirmed our strategy. He was following the breadcrumbs, and we were ready to observe without intervention. The estate became a stage. Each room, each cabinet, each letter was a prop in a larger narrative of revelation. I found a quiet satisfaction in the meticulousness of our planning. My daughter's precision, my sister's vigilance, and the lawyer's guidance ensured that every piece of evidence was secure and every response calculated. Late July, I reviewed the ledger with a sense of grim anticipation. The traps were working, the cameras had captured enough footage, and BL's obsession had become predictable. I reflected on my childhood lessons about patience and strategy, how a hasty move could compromise a careful plan. This was no longer just protection. It was a chess game, one where patience and foresight would determine the outcome. July 20th, the final piece fell into place. Hidden keys, previously buried in innocuous locations, were accounted for and secured. All letters and journals were organized with timestamps and photograph backups. Any attempt by BL to tamper with the estate would now be traceable beyond dispute. Every small inconsistency, every carefully placed forged map, ensured the breadcrumbs would lead directly to him, culminating in the eventual public reveal. The summer was turning from chaos into strategy. Every action, every observation, every ledger entry became a calculated step toward the ultimate confrontation. He was blinded by obsession, overconfident in his perceived cleverness, unaware that every move was documented, timed, and ready for presentation. The secret planning was complete. The stage was set, and I felt for the first time that we were not merely reacting, we were controlling the narrative, steering the betrayal toward its inevitable exposure. By late July, I realized observation alone wouldn't be enough. My BL's obsession had grown sharper, more confident. his every step calculated. It was time to turn the breadcrumbs we'd planted into a trail he couldn't resist. Every forged map, misfiled receipt, and subtle inconsistency now served a purpose to guide him into the open, to reveal the depth of his intrusion without tipping him off. July 22nd. A Thursday, I placed a forged appraisal note in the greenhouse ledger. It suggested that a minor part of the treasure, gold coins supposedly overlooked, was hidden beneath the greenhouse floorboards. The wording was precise, legal sounding, innocuous enough to seem authentic. Within hours, my daughter's hidden camera captured him lingering near the greenhouse, hands hovering over the floorboards as if plotting his next move. The first breadcrumb had been taken. Text messages became another vector. Using authorized monitoring of our shared family communication network, I intercepted and documented his inquiries. "Did you check the greenhouse? And maybe the attic floorboards?" Every line was logged and forwarded legally to our lawyer. Each message confirmed the path we had anticipated, exposing his obsession without confrontation. July 23rd, 2:15 p.m. Lawyer received digital copies of messages, July 23rd, 3:10 p.m. Daughter reported Billa's greenhouse visit. Our small family gatherings turned into subtle psychological arenas. Brunch on July 24th was particularly telling. He couldn't resist mentioning the treasure in passing, bragging to my sister about how close he believed he was. "Your father left more clues than you think," he said, smirking. I smiled tightly, masking the rush of satisfaction that came from knowing we had captured evidence of both his words and movements. The hidden camera recorded it all, from the glint in his eyes to the tension in his posture. The psychological tension was intense. I watched the estate carefully, the squeak of floorboards, the subtle scent of cologne lingering near doors, the faint rustle of paper. Each sensory cue was a confirmation of his obsession. Small misdirections, like inconspicuous notes hinting at treasures in safe but irrelevant locations, kept him engaged while we documented every action. He was walking into the trail we had laid out, blind to our strategic advantage. Legal documentation continued in parallel. July 25th, the lawyer drafted formal notices, preparing for potential trespass claims and misrepresentation evidence. We ensured that every breadcrumb, every baited clue was fully traceable. The combination of forged evidence and surveillance would leave no ambiguity when the final reveal came. By the end of July, the estate had become a theater of controlled observation. Each room, each document, each planted clue acted like a puppet, drawing him further into exposure. I watched him over several days as he followed the trail, completely unaware that his every move was being meticulously documented. The greenhouse, the attic, the ledger cabinets, all acted as stages for his unfolding obsession. July 28th, a Wednesday, was particularly illustrative. He lingered at the greenhouse floorboards for nearly 30 minutes, muttering to himself. My daughter whispered updates into my ear from a discreet vantage point. Sweaty palms, darting eyes, hesitation before he tried lifting the floorboards. Every second was logged, video recorded, and added to our day-by-day ledger. The breadcrumb trail was working exactly as planned. Evening reflection brought a quiet satisfaction. The overconfidence he displayed was now a liability, and we were in full control. The estate was fortified, evidence documented, and the traps were set. Each breadcrumb had drawn him closer to public exposure. The moment when strategy and justice would converge. By the time July ended, I could feel the tension coiling like a spring across the Chestnut Hill estate. The breadcrumbs of deceit had led him exactly where we wanted, and he didn't even realize it. The methodical phase of revenge was working, and every observation, every ledger entry, every video clip would play a pivotal role in the story's climax. Early August brought confirmation of everything I had feared and anticipated. The greenhouse, carefully baited with the forged appraisal, had become the epicenter of Bill's obsession. On August 2nd, my daughter's camera captured him kneeling, hands prying at the floorboards, muttering to himself as though the treasures were his birthright. The sound of splintering wood and shifting soil echoed faintly through the estate, a soundtrack to the culmination of months of careful observation. I called my lawyer immediately. August 2nd, 4:45 p.m. Video evidence submitted showing clear, unauthorized access. By August 3rd, formal legal notices citing trespass, fraud, and misrepresentation were drafted. Every document, receipt, and video frame was cataloged meticulously. Bill's obsession had left him exposed. Now law and strategy would converge to ensure accountability. Small public embarrassments were a tool I began to deploy. August 5th, during a casual family luncheon, Bill bragged openly about his findings in the greenhouse. I recorded the conversation discreetly, noting every overconfident gesture, every half-truth. August 6th, my daughter uncovered an overlooked ledger note, a map pointing to a minor artifact under the greenhouse floor, which he had attempted to lift and document. We now had not only evidence of intent, but proof of active intrusion. The emotional stakes heightened further. Each act of Bill's overreach reminded me of my grandmother's insistence on family honor, and each documented misstep strengthened the moral imperative to act. I revisited childhood journals, recalling the precise hiding spots, the coded notations, the small symbols that indicated value and historical importance. It became clear that his obsession had blinded him to nuance. He was no longer careful, no longer subtle. The estate itself became a chessboard. Every step he took was anticipated and logged. August 8th, daughter's report. Bill tried lifting floorboards near the greenhouse again, unaware of hidden sensors installed a week prior. Each attempt was captured on video, time-stamped, and cross-referenced with our ledger. The combination of physical surveillance, digital records, and legal preparation created an airtight framework. By August 10th, the momentum was undeniable. Evidence of unauthorized entry, tampering, and obsession had been fully documented. The lawyer began preparing potential filings for civil actions, ensuring any public exposure would have legal backing. The anticipation of the holiday dinner reveal grew. Every captured misstep added to the narrative of obsession and betrayal we were constructing. Even amidst the meticulous planning, I reflected on the stakes. Beale's intrusion was not just a breach of property. It was a violation of family trust and history. The treasure was more than silver and coins. It was identity, legacy, and memory. Each captured act of trespass, each overconfident gesture, underscored the moral clarity of our response. By mid-August, the greenhouse dig had become emblematic of his obsession and our strategy. Every detail recorded, every ledger entry cross-verified, and every minor misstep documented created a tapestry of evidence that would leave no doubt. The stage was nearly set for the final act. Public exposure, accountability, and justice. The greenhouse, silent once more, stood as a testament to months of observation, planning, and moral resolve. Ball's obsession had led him to this moment, and soon the meticulously documented betrayal would culminate in a confrontation that neither he nor anyone else would forget. By mid-August, the estate was thick with tension. Every hallway, every room, every creaking floorboard seemed to pulse with the knowledge that Bill's obsession had turned into paranoia. He had begun noticing subtle changes: locks I'd upgraded, cameras that never revealed themselves, misplaced letters that were bait, not oversight. His once confident stride became hesitant. His overconfident smirk had been replaced by nervous glances. August 12th, Thursday evening, he confronted me in the library. "Jackson," he said, voice tight, "are you spying on me? Watching my every move?" His eyes darted toward the ledger cabinets, then the greenhouse door. I remained calm, choosing silence over admission, letting his overconfidence erode under the weight of suspicion. I could see it in his posture: tense shoulders, shallow breaths, a hand brushing against the wall as though seeking reassurance. Daily monitoring intensified. Every attempt to manipulate or misrepresent was captured. August 13th, 11:05 a.m., daughter reported bill drafting messages to my sister, subtly probing for alternative treasure locations. August 14th, 3:30 p.m., heat and camera footage revealed him rifling through minor letters, unaware of the sensors alerting us to every movement. His paranoia combined with obsession was a combustible mix. Even family gatherings became arenas of subtle psychological warfare. Bia's voice, previously confident and brimming with charm, now wavered when he made passing remarks about family history. Each misstep was recorded. August 14th, 6:15 p.m., brunch. He commented on a ledger entry incorrectly. Daughter noted timestamp, video corroborated. August 15th, 10:45 a.m. Whispered phone conversation captured him convincing a neighbor to keep an eye on certain estate rooms. The weight of moral responsibility pressed on me. I had to ensure that justice remained ethical, legal, and unassailable. Every observation was cross-referenced ledger entries, video evidence, photographs, and legal advisories from our lawyer. I reflected on the months of planning, the careful traps, and the breadcrumbs laid with precision. His obsession was now fully exposed through his own actions, but it was my duty to maintain the integrity of the process. Small misdirections continued to work in our favor. Minor forged notes hinted at treasure locations elsewhere, guiding his paranoia without direct confrontation. His every hesitation, every glance, every whispered thought was captured. August 16th, daughter reported him pacing near the attic with visible anxiety. August 16th, 5:30 p.m. Hidden camera footage showed him measuring floorboards with precision, unaware of the legal documentation building around him. By late August, the estate felt alive with tension. The very walls seemed to watch him, silently recording his obsession and paranoia. Each day brought subtle victories, proof of misrepresentation attempts, repeated trespass, and signs of mounting anxiety. Reflection reminded me that this was not cruelty. It was justice executed through careful, lawful strategy. The crescendo was near. His paranoia, fueled by obsession, ensured that the path we had laid for exposure would culminate naturally. Each misstep, each sign of nervousness, every misjudged move became evidence, steadily tightening the net around him. By observing, documenting, and anticipating, I had transformed his obsession into proof of betrayal, ready to be revealed to the world. The estate, once a place of quiet family memories, now held the tension of inevitability. BIL's paranoia would be his undoing, and all of our meticulous planning, ledgers, and hidden evidence would ensure that justice, not revenge alone, would prevail. The stage was set, the confrontation loomed, and every detail was accounted for. August 15th arrived with a quiet tension that pressed against the walls of the Chestnut Hill estate. The estate, normally alive with summer light and gentle rustle of leaves, seemed to hold its breath. Every detail of the holiday dinner had been orchestrated with meticulous care. The long oak table polished to a gleam, the silverware arranged with precision, and the dining room subtly staged to allow for projection of evidence without distraction. As guests arrived, Bill moved with his usual overconfidence, greeting everyone with a broad smile. He had no idea that his obsession and overreach had been documented in every detail for weeks. I sat at the head of the table, flanked by my daughter and sister, feeling the calm weight of anticipation. Every ledger entry, every hidden camera clip, every forged map had led to this moment. Dinner commenced with casual conversation, laughter masking the underlying tension. Bill predictably could not resist referencing the treasure, his voice carrying a subtle arrogance. "I think I've figured out a few more details," he said, smirking. I smiled, hiding the satisfaction that came from knowing every move he had made was recorded, time-stamped, and verified. The overconfidence was palpable. It was about to become his undoing. As dessert plates were cleared, I activated the slideshow on the screen discreetly positioned at the far end of the room. The first image appeared, a photograph of the $3,200 appraisal bill he had attempted to pocket weeks ago, time-stamped June 10th. The room went quiet. I began narrating, my voice calm but measured. "Let's review the past few weeks," I said. "Every interaction, every curiosity, every step has been documented." The next slides showed hidden camera footage of him at the greenhouse, lifting floorboards, lingering near forged maps, and rifling through letters. Each timestamp, each ledger note, each intercepted message appeared alongside the visuals. Bill's confident smile faltered. He shifted uncomfortably, trying to interject, but my daughter's well-timed commentary highlighted the chronology of his trespasses. August 2nd, kneeling over the greenhouse floorboards. August 5th, bragging to my sister. August 12th, confronting me in the library while unaware of the censors. Each detail reinforced the inevitability of exposure. I displayed intercepted texts, carefully curated to show attempts at manipulation and misrepresentation. Your obsession has been recorded, I said softly. Each action has a trace. The room's air felt taut, electric with disbelief, humiliation, and the weight of truth. Guests murmured, glances darting between him and the projections. Legal documents were next, formal notices, time-stamped entries and affidavits confirming unauthorized entry and attempted fraud. Every action Bell had taken was now undeniable, backed by evidence that could withstand scrutiny in court or any family forum. He swallowed, eyes darting, searching for excuses. There were none. The meticulous strategy we had executed over weeks had come to fruition. I paused for reflection, letting the silence emphasize the gravity of the moment. This isn't about revenge, I continued. It's about setting boundaries and protecting what's ours. Every ledger entry, every camera, every note was created to preserve integrity, not to punish unnecessarily. The room absorbed the weight of my words. My daughter and sister exchanged glances, relief and vindication evident. Bill finally stood. His voice was strained, a mix of disbelief and embarrassment. He tried to deflect, to claim misunderstanding, but the evidence was irrefutable. Each projected image, each timestamp, each ledger entry closed around him like an inescapable net. I watched as the combination of obsession, overconfidence, and exposure eroded the persona he had carefully maintained for weeks. As he left the room, publicly exposed yet unaware of the full breadth of documentation we had collected, a quiet satisfaction settled over me. Justice had been served through strategy, patience, and ethical planning. The estate returned to its calm, the air now lighter, the tension dissipating as truth had prevailed. I reflected on the journey. Months of observation, planning, and careful documentation had transformed fear and betrayal into a lawful moral victory. My daughter and sister had been indispensable allies, their vigilance and insight shaping every step. And as I closed the laptop containing the slideshow, I knew the story of Bill's obsession, fully documented, would remain a testament to patience, precision, and the inevitability of accountability. The holiday dinner had ended, but the impact lingered. Bill's humiliation, the clarity of evidence, and the public exposure ensured the family legacy was secured, the betrayal acknowledged, and justice delivered. Every misstep he had made, every moment of overconfidence, had been turned into a narrative of lawful retribution, and in that quiet, precise orchestration, I felt the culmination of months of careful, unwavering strategy. The day after the holiday dinner, the estate felt unusually still. The usual hum of summer activity was subdued, as if the house itself were processing the weight of what had occurred. BIL had vanished from the family gatherings, and whispers lingered in the hallways about his public exposure. Every ledger entry, every captured video, every time-stamped note had done its job. The betrayal was documented, and justice, at least in the court of family and conscience, had been served. I walked through the library, observing the order we had restored. Letters were back in their correct folders, journals stacked neatly, and forged maps removed. The greenhouse, once the epicenter of obsession, was undisturbed, the floorboards intact and secure. Security cameras remained in place, discreet but watchful. Each measure served as both a safeguard and a reminder of the months of vigilance required to protect what was ours. My daughter and sister were my anchors in the aftermath. August 16th, she reported a neighbor's confirmation. Bell had been seen leaving town, his usual arrogance replaced by cautious avoidance. The ledger entries were updated with these observations. August 16th, 9:20 a.m. Bell and neighbor affidavit received. August 16th, 9:45 a.m. Confirmed absence from estate. Relief mingled with the lingering tension of recent betrayal. I reflected on the emotional toll of the preceding weeks. The constant monitoring, the anxiety over misplaced letters and attempted thefts, and the moral weight of orchestrating a strategic reveal had left me drained. Yet there was clarity in the resolution. The family's legacy, the heirlooms, and the historical documents were secure. The betrayal had been confronted, the obsession documented, and the estate restored to a state of trust and order. Small victories were found in subtle moments. A letter I had misplaced months earlier was now back in its proper folder, each page carefully reviewed, Receipts from antique appraisals and past auctions were reconciled. Evidence that had once been a source of anxiety now served as confirmation of methodical planning and foresight. The ledger, once a record of intrusion, had transformed into a testament of careful strategy and accountability. Emotionally, I felt a tentative peace. The fear of losing the treasure and legacy had passed, replaced by satisfaction that justice had been achieved without cruelty. My daughter and sister shared quiet smiles. Our combined vigilance had not only protected the estate, but reinforced our family bonds. The months of strategy, patience, and careful documentation had transformed betrayal into clarity and restored confidence. By the end of the day, I took a solitary walk through the estate grounds. The late summer sun cast long shadows across the lawns, and the air smelled faintly of pine and earth. The weight of betrayal had lessened, replaced by the satisfaction of a job executed with precision and morality. The aftermath was not just about consequences for Bill, but also about reaffirming family trust, preserving history, and ensuring that lessons learned would guide future vigilance. The estate, secure and serene, stood as a testament to patience, observation, and justice achieved through careful planning. The fallout of betrayal had been contained, family honor restored, and the legacy protected. And in that quiet, reflective moment, I realized that vigilance, strategy, and moral restraint were the true instruments of lasting justice. The week following the fallout was a period of restoration, both practical and emotional. The estate's atmosphere, once thick with tension, gradually returned to a sense of calm. Bill's absence was noticeable, a silent acknowledgement of his defeat, yet the real victory lay in the restoration of our family's honor and legacy. Our lawyer finalized the legal details, ensuring formal recognition of Bill's misdeeds. August 18th, notarized affidavits were filed, confirming unauthorized entry and attempts at misrepresentation. The documents included ledger summaries, photographs, and video evidence. Each signature, each seal reinforced accountability and legality. The combination of tangible evidence and ethical action solidified justice without resorting to personal vengeance. The family's confidence returned slowly. My daughter and sister were reassured that our vigilance had not only exposed betrayal, but safeguarded our historical treasures. The heirlooms, journals, and appraisal records were once again secure, each carefully documented and cross-checked against previous intrusion attempts. The ledger, once a record of paranoia and anxiety, had evolved into a chronicle of methodical justice. I reflected on the lessons embedded in this experience. Justice is rarely about public spectacle or humiliation. It is about setting boundaries and ensuring consequences for betrayal while maintaining moral integrity. Bill had overstepped, driven by obsession and greed, and the consequences were now clear. His social standing was diminished, credibility undermined, and every action traced back to his own choices. Family interactions slowly returned to normal. Conversations no longer carried the subtle tension of suspicion, and gatherings were marked by genuine engagement rather than guarded observation. My daughter, proud of her role in documenting and uncovering the truth, had matured in ways I had anticipated but could not have fully imagined. My sister's support had been indispensable, a reminder of the power of unity and trust. August 21st, I conducted a final audit of the estate. All documents, journals, and ledgers were reviewed, cataloged, and stored securely. Security measures remained, not out of fear, but as a prudent safeguard. The combination of physical, digital, and procedural documentation ensured that our legacy was untouchable. In the quiet of the library, I allowed myself a moment of personal reflection. The betrayal, obsession, and tension had tested every facet of patience, strategy, and moral clarity. Yet through measured planning, ethical vigilance, and steadfast documentation, justice had been achieved. The estate, the heirlooms, and the family's honor were restored, a testament to the careful balance between observation, strategy, and principled action. The finality was profound. Bill had lost social standing, credibility, and access, while the family's legacy was reaffirmed. My daughter and sister had played active roles in ensuring that the betrayal was exposed and the estate protected. Justice had not been an act of cruelty, but of preservation of history, memory, and family honor. With Bill fully exposed and absent from the family sphere, a quiet sense of resolution settled over the estate. The treasures, journals, and ledgers were once again secure, meticulously catalogued and protected. Yet the true victory extended beyond physical objects. It was the restoration of trust, honor, and family legacy that had been threatened by greed and obsession. I spent hours walking the estate, observing the carefully restored order. Each cabinet, shelf, and drawer carried the weight of history and the reassurance of security. The ledger, once a tool for tracking intrusion and betrayal, had transformed into a testament of diligence and foresight. Every entry, every time-stamped video, and every captured correspondence had ensured that justice was achieved without resorting to vindictiveness. Reflecting on the months of planning, surveillance, and strategic misdirection, I realized that legacy is not merely about possessions or heirlooms, it is about the values we uphold, the integrity we protect, and the memories we preserve. The lessons from this ordeal were clear. Vigilance, patience, and moral clarity are essential when safeguarding what truly matters. My daughter and sister were integral to this process. Their observation, insight, and steadfast support had ensured that every detail was accounted for, every betrayal documented, and every intrusion exposed. The experience strengthened our bonds, reinforcing the importance of trust and collaboration in preserving family history. I also reflected on the nature of betrayal and greed. BIL's obsession, unchecked and misdirected, had led to his downfall, yet the response had been measured, ethical, and grounded in principle. Revenge had not been about humiliation or retribution. It had been about setting boundaries, ensuring accountability, and protecting what was rightfully ours. As I closed the estate's doors for the evening, the warm summer breeze carrying the scent of pine and earth, I felt a deep sense of satisfaction. Justice had been delivered, legacy secured, and the lessons of vigilance and prudence firmly embedded. You didn't lose me, you gave me away. The aphorism echoed in my mind, a succinct reflection of the ordeal. Betrayal had tested me, but through careful strategy and unwavering principle, our family's history, honor, and legacy had endured. The estate settled into a calm rhythm I hadn't felt in months. Each morning, sunlight spilled across the library's shelves, illuminating journals and ledgers that had once been threatened by intrusion. I walked among them quietly, savoring the sense of control restored. The treasures were safe, the documents organized, and the legacy untarnished. Bill's absence was palpable. He had vanished from family circles, leaving behind only the evidence of his obsession and the memory of his overconfidence. Our family gatherings resumed naturally, free from tension and suspicion. Trust had been rebuilt, subtly but profoundly, between my daughter, my sister, and me. I often spent afternoons in the library alone, reviewing the ledgers, photographs, and documentation that had secured our victory. Each item was a reminder of the careful strategy and ethical vigilance that had transformed betrayal into resolution. The quiet was no longer empty. It was full of satisfaction, reflection, and the reassurance that justice had been achieved. The estate, once tense and uncertain, now hummed with steady life. The treasure was safe, the betrayal exposed, and the legacy secured. In that quiet victory, I finally felt the balance restored, the estate at peace, and the family honor intact. Months later, I discovered a small, almost comical twist. Bill had begun boasting online about his knowledge of our family history, unaware that the recordings, ledgers, and documented evidence of his obsession had been discreetly shared with neighbors and close friends. Each post, each claim only amplified the irony. He was flaunting a triumph that didn't exist. I scrolled past his updates with quiet amusement, knowing the full story, every intrusion, every misstep, every moment of overconfidence was cataloged and verified. The digital bravado he displayed had no power over the estate, the treasure, or our family's honor. In fact, it served as a subtle reminder of the meticulous planning that had secured justice months ago. From my perspective in the library, surrounded by journals and ledgers, the irony was complete. The obsession that had once threatened our legacy now played out in public folly, a testament to the careful strategy, ethical vigilance, and patience that had protected what mattered most. He had become a character in his own undoing, unaware that every boast only reinforced the narrative of his exposure. Justice lingered quietly, morally intact and ironically sweet. Bill's prideful declarations were irrelevant. They could not undo the months of careful observation, planning, and moral restraint that had ensured the legacy remained ours. The estate, the family honor, and the treasure stood untouched, a testament to vigilance and principled action. Late August brought a quiet discovery that shifted everything I thought I knew about my Bill's obsession. While sorting through an old filing cabinet in the attic, I found a stack of letters and notes, some yellowed with age, tucked behind folders I had assumed were irrelevant. My hands trembled slightly as I lifted the first envelope. The handwriting was unmistakably his. I realized then that his fixation on our family's treasure had begun months, perhaps even years before I had first noticed the subtle intrusions. The first letter was dated March 2020, written on crisp stationery, a casual inquiry to a distant family friend about heirlooms, phrased innocently yet meticulously hinting at locations and values. He had documented every detail in code, underlining words, drawing small arrows as though creating a private map. I traced the lines with my finger, feeling the old thrill of childhood treasure hunts, mixed with a cold knot of dread. This was more than curiosity. It was premeditated obsession. I continued sifting through the stack, each letter revealing escalating ambition. April 2020. A note to a rare antiques dealer casually referencing family history, but clearly fishing for hidden objects. May 2020. A scribbled memo about photographs he claimed to have seen in our grandparents' house. His obsession wasn't spontaneous. It had been methodical, cultivated over time, patiently building a foundation he hoped would give him leverage. My daughter hovered nearby, tablet in hand, ready to document each discovery. "Dad," she whispered, eyes wide. "He planned this, all of it." Before we even knew, I nodded grimly, realizing the scale of what we were dealing with. Each letter was photographed, time-stamped, and added to the ledger. August 22nd, 10:15 a.m. Hidden correspondence dated May 2020 discovered. August 22nd, 10:45 a.m. Photographed and catalogued. The historical record he had tried to manipulate was now fully exposed. The letters also contained minor admissions, bragging, coded references to treasure, and hints of prior attempts to access certain rooms or documents. Some were half-hearted apologies to family members for curiosity, written with the same tone he had used during estate events, cloaked in casual charm. But the truth was undeniable. Obsession, carefully planned and long-standing, had driven him toward the intrusions I had documented over the summer. I realized that these discoveries added a new layer of strategy. With the historical context in hand, I could predict patterns, anticipate behavior, and reinforce the traps we had already laid. The ledger entries became richer, now reflecting both current observations and past intent. Each step he had taken in 2021 could be cross-referenced with prior attempts, proving premeditation, obsession, and disregard for family boundaries. I paused, reflecting on the emotional weight of these findings. It wasn't just the treasure that was at stake, it was the integrity of memory, the trust of family, and the continuity of our history. He had tried to manipulate every layer of it, but now every letter, every note, every faintly written plan was evidence of his obsession and our ethical, measured vigilance. By late afternoon, I had catalogued the entire correspondence stack. Each envelope was sealed in protective sleeves, cross-referenced with ledger entries, photographs, and hidden camera footage. The scale of his obsession was staggering, yet meticulously documented. It reinforced the importance of patience and precision. Betrayal, once exposed, could be framed within a narrative of justice, not vengeance. As I closed the final folder and returned to the library, the summer's heat waned into a soft, golden light. The discovery of the hidden correspondence had transformed months of observation into a decades-spanning record of intent. His obsession was fully illuminated, every move accountable, every misstep documented. And in that quiet attic, surrounded by letters and ledgers, I realized the final showdown would be both inevitable and complete. The final week of August was a study in meticulous vigilance. The estate, once a place of casual summer bustle, had transformed into a controlled theater of preparation. Every door, drawer, and hidden compartment was double-checked. I walked through each room, notebook in hand, confirming that the ledger, photographs, video evidence, and even the newly discovered letters from BIL were in precise order. The estate itself seemed to hum with quiet anticipation, the air thick with the knowledge that the culmination of months of observation and planning was imminent. August 24th, Tuesday morning, I convened a final strategy session with my daughter and sister. We reviewed every piece of evidence from hidden camera footage to ledger entries and mapped out the sequence for presenting it to family during the eventual public reveal. Every detail matters, I reminded them. Every timestamp, every note, every photograph must be accurate. One misstep could unravel the months of work we've invested. My daughter nodded, her tablet open with digital copies of all files, while my sister cross-referenced physical ledgers. The room carried a quiet intensity, punctuated only by the occasional shuffle of papers and soft clicks of the tablet keyboard. I inspected the greenhouse floorboards one last time, ensuring they were secured after his previous attempts. August 25th, the sensors were recalibrated, hidden cameras tested, and forged maps removed, leaving only legitimate items in view. Each action was logged in the ledger. August 25th, 9:15 a. Mesab Greenhouse Final Inspection. August 25th, 9:40 a.m. Security devices confirmed operational. The estate had become both a fortress and a stage, ready for the final act of exposure. Even mundane areas received attention. I reviewed letters in the library, ensuring that no accidental clues remained and that every forged breadcrumb had already served its purpose. Each envelope was cross-checked against digital records and the day-by-day ledger. August 26th, 2:30 p.m., the library final review complete. Everything aligned perfectly. It was a quiet reassurance that months of strategy had been executed flawlessly. During the evenings, I allowed myself moments of reflection. The betrayal, obsession, and tension that had gripped the family were distilled into lessons on vigilance, patience, and ethical justice. The treasure, the journals, and the legacy were safe. But the human lessons were equally vital. Betrayal could be anticipated and countered without resorting to malice, provided one acted with clarity and foresight. On August 27th, the day before the planned family gathering, I performed a final walkthrough. The estate was pristine, the cameras operational, and every piece of evidence perfectly catalogued. My daughter and sister were stationed in positions where they could observe without interfering, ready to document any final movements. The stage was set, every variable accounted for, every potential misstep BIL could make anticipated. As dusk settled, I stood in the library, gazing at the organized ledgers, the neatly stored journals, and the subtle cues of months of careful planning. The estate was alive with quiet anticipation. BIL's obsession had led him here, fully exposed in our records, every step accounted for, every move anticipated. The vigil was complete, and with it came a calm satisfaction. The final preparations had ensured that the coming confrontation would be decisive, measured, and morally grounded. The summer of obsession, betrayal, and meticulous planning had reached its penultimate moment. The estate was secured, the legacy protected, and justice ready to be served. The vigil was not just about observation, it was about control, clarity, and ensuring that every piece of the story, every act of betrayal, would culminate in a resolution that was ethical, lawful, and utterly undeniable.